Ladies and gentlemen, the long-awaited, the highly anticipated, and it was off the air, so I won't hold McDermott to it, but he is a fan of Wales certified Bill McDermott, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the assembled multitude. By the way, long-awaited, highly anticipated. By whom?
I tell you, I take myself, myself, and I every place I go, and I'm telling you, I've been told, the sisters told me, the three, that's a crowd, that's a big, so.
Sure.
Yeah, but the highly, what is it? The long-awaited,
highly anticipated. Yes.
But it ain't no joke. I have to say this on behalf of St. Louisans and worldwide soccer fans, is that, seeing getting a little bit of you getting the little McDermott essence, the essence of the McDermott. You start doing the pros, and you start, really saying, hey, man, this is really something. Because every time I've seen you and you were emceeing, it was always the place to be at that particular time, and it was forever. You can't forget it.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. You know what, Kev? I'm just trying, with reference to our favorite sport, I'm just trying to do what Monsignor Lou Meyer always instructed us to do, and he was very forceful with it whenever he told us to do this, and that is, once you get finished playing the sport, make sure you give something back. So I think that's what you do it your way, I do it my way, and countless other friends and associates and people we know through the sport of soccer have all been doing it their own way for decades. But it continues to make St. Louis the birthplace of the popularity of the sport in our country.
There you go. And we're putting, and it just seems as if, I don't want to be parochial, but it seems as if almost everything goes through or out of SPN territory. In the mention of Terry Michler, he was in the county, but he came, Dave got him on a roster and he played some ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but...
well, I think, I, of course, totally agree with you. However, a lot of my friends, some of whom at the Soccer Hall of Fame banquet, keep track of the number of times I say St. Philip Neri. So they told me to keep it at a reasonable amount. But it was just a parish, Kev, that I don't really have a feel for how it transpired at St. Philip Neri and how we as a parish were dealt this card. But it certainly has to do with all the people who grew up in that parish. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, like so many of our friends and associates have given back to the sport of soccer, everyone has. We learned so much in the schoolyard, literally at St. Philip Neri, and we're just trying to give it back in some capacity so that people know that soccer in the United States did not just start in 1996 when MLS started. It didn't start in the late 60s when NASL started. That's when the professional league started. But in St. Louis, it started in 1875. And we just continue, as I said, just continue to try to do our part to keep it going.
Did you ever hear of it? I'm sure you were too young in your crib to go to any of those games that were played at the old Sportsman's Park down on Grand Avenue?
I know about almost every one of them because I was given the details in pristine order by Harry Keel.
There you go. There you go. Come from the source, baby.
Not only would he tell us about those games, Kev, but and again, in absolutely pristine, impeccable style, the 1950 game in which the United States beat Brazil. Excuse me. In Brazil, beat England. But if you wanted to know anything about that game, Harry was your source.
And he didn't do too bad of a job in 70 in Mexico, neither, did he?
No, Harry's done superbly. A lot of people forgot that Pete Sorber took over for Harry at Florissant Valley, and that's when Harry went to St. Louis University. And I was fortunate, one of the many to be fortunate, to be in his first class in 1967. Fast forward to December 2nd, 1967, and we end up being co-champions with Michigan State after playing a game at Francis Field at Washington U. It was called off at halftime because of the inclement weather, whereas in actuality, the game should have never been started. You've never, Kev, I know you've seen bad fields. You've never seen a field as atrocious as this. There were puddles on the field. There was ice floating in the puddles.
Yeah.
The rain / snow / sleet was coming down sideways, and one of the St. Louisans in the Michigan State first 11, Guy Bush, he loses his footing, slips, slides, hits his forehead on the goalpost, and boom, he's knocked out, nearly unconscious.
Yeah.
So the ref, he said, that's it. So you end up being co-champs. But that was Harry's first year. And we were very fortunate that he and Val Pellizzero took over at St. Louis University.
Wow. What a battle. The Spartans and the and the Bills. The Bills. Wow.
With that first 11, Kev, for Michigan State having, conservatively estimating 6 or 7 St. Louisans in their first 11, with some other very prominent players from the Chicago area, led foremostly by Ernie Tushar. But they were an excellent team.
I bet. Not to... So we go all the way through, and one of the last, if not the last, is Jeff Sidorbury from SPN. And on a full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that it was in the you guys were a little ahead of me, so we wouldn't do it. But I would have said, no way, no how. These Wallen Parkers from down on Riverview and Thekla, we will go right straight up there to play for a game, man. You know.
We were. I can't believe you mentioned it, Kev. I happened to see Dan Flynn at a restaurant on Sunday night. Both our respective families were out. He was with his wife. I was with my family. Happened to be my birthday, as a matter of fact. And we were talking about people like Mr. Flynn, who coached me in Crusader soccer. You mentioned Jeff Zindobry. Mr. Zindobry was very, very active at St. Fulton Mary. One of those fathers at the parish who were always there for everything, to volunteer to help out the parish, whether it be soccer, a fish fry, collecting money for Cardinal Glennon, whatever. But that was the basis, not just for St. Fulton Mary, but that was the basis for all parishes in the city of St. Louis.
You got it. So there you go. An unbelievable way of happening is that all that comes, and now comes 50, 60 years later. Just could you imagine if there was an all-star, Northside all-star team that was, training, that, would have the best equipment and the facilities and so forth, just what they would have done.
Well, not only that, Kev, Obviously, I would be prone to the North Sider simply because I grew up there. But the games we used to have on a regular basis with the teams from South St. Louis, case in point, St. Philip Neri against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. What a soccer hotbed the Immaculate Heart of Mary was. And the truth be told, at our St. Louis U practices, we would, on a regular basis, have North St. Louisans against South St. Louisans. And it was odd because it always turned out to be almost even number of players wise. So Harry and Val chose wisely, as did Bob Gelker way before them, starting the program back in 1959. But again, that was the basis for St. Louis University soccer. And that is that of the 10 NCAA championships, Kev, of the 10 championships, I would venture to say that almost, this is a high number, but I think it's realistic, almost 95% of the players from those 10 championships were all born and raised in St. Louis. That's unheard of for any kind of an intercollegiate program of any description, irrespective of the sport. But the fact that it's from all St. Louisans, it has to do directly, and it goes back to what we began our conversation with, the parishes in the CYC. That's what the early years of St. Louis University, and then later, as we got to the 10th championship, started to filter out a little bit. But as you kind of alluded to, Jeff, there were no club teams. The club teams were the parish teams. Simple as that. But now it's 2025. We totally understand that you don't get in your Kavanaugh hat and wait on the corner of Grand and Olive for a streetcar. we know that's long over, but it still made its mark, and it's one of the building bricks in the overall foundation of St. Louis soccer.
Right. A guy just told me the other day of trying to just get a soccer ball, maybe a couple of little nets, on every public grade school and high school in St. Louis. See what happens.
Yep. And it's now I'm not equating it, Kev, with. It's become extremely more popular. All you have to do is look around. The other major sports in the United States, that's what differentiates the United States from Europe, South America, whatever country is going to be coming to the World Cup next year. It is not the only sport in our culture. It is the only sport in many, many cultures.
Okay.
And so be it. And that's why we look up to other countries.
Yeah.
When we look forward to seeing them play in World Cups, Kevin. I think that's one of the main things that really helped usher in the popularity again for the sport internationally in 1994 when the World Cup came here, in that people began to see what it was like. They got caught up in the enthusiasm of what it was to watch a country versus a country, not just a city against a city in some of the other major championships of sports in our country. I think, I have always thought that watching a country playing a country is far more compelling.
Bill, you got the shoes from underneath the bed. All these years, I never really looked at that and said, that is a real reason of why this is where it is.
I think so, Ken. And a lot of the teams that, for instance, there's there's 13 countries already to have made it to the World Cup. Among them, Jordan, Uzbekistan. Now, is Jordan or Uzbekistan going to win the World Cup? Well, of course they're not. But the mere fact that they're included in the 48 nations. Now, whether you or I think that 48 nations is too many for the World Cup, that's a conversation for an entirely different show. But nonetheless, the mere fact that small countries like this, who likewise play the sport, do they play it as well as Argentina, Brazil, Germany? We don't know. Probably not, but they're getting involved, and this is the way that people in those respective countries show their nationalism.
Yeah.
They live through their World Cup teams. For instance, in Brazil in 2014, when Germany is playing Brazil and beats them 7-1. Do you remember, Kevin? How, first of all, how is that possible? Now, Brazil was missing a lot of players, but the game was played in Brazil.
Yeah.
And Germany eviscerates them. People are in the stands, noticeably crying. They're crestfallen. This is our national team.
Yeah,
5 stars on their shirt, getting taken apart. And this is how they live their day-to-day activity, sporting-wise, through their national team.
There it is. And how the stories of, man, I came so close to being on the national team.
Were you the last guy cut?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Kev? As a follow-up to that, we're all very fortunate to be able to say we have friends who played on the United States national team.
Man, dude.
How fortunate are we? Some of whom we played with.
Yeah.
Others of whom we watched.
Yeah.
I announced all 5 of them because they play the last 5 from the St. Louis area. Excuse me, there are 2 of them who were not born and raised in St. Louis, but they all played at St. Louis University. So I was fortunate to be able to see Mike Sorber, Brad Davis, Vidal Ibisevic, even though he played for Bosnia, he played at St. Louis U. Brian McBride, and then, of course, Tim Ream, because every team in the world needs a left-footed center back. But we watched these guys play. We marveled in their talent. And we knew, I think somewhat knew secretively and then other times blatantly, that these players were going to represent their country on the United States national team.
Yeah. And from the highest ranks to, junior college, that's low, but it's not. I mean, that Pete Sober, he knew the X's and O's and all the Larrys and the Joes.
Kev, to have watched a guy like Pete over the years who never lost his grace, his wit, his matter-of-factness to the bottom line. For instance, Mike Sorber told me a story at Pete's Memorial Mass when he was talking about various teams closing their practices, to which Pete said, closing their practice? What for? They're not doing anything different. They just happen to do it better than us. They're not doing anything different. But you talk about a coach like Pete Sorber, Harry Keogh, we've been talking about Herring and Val, people who've gone before them, Bob Gelker. You mentioned the high schools, the junior colleges, Terry Michler, Pat McBride. The list is endless, obviously. But what they contributed mostly, I think, to the overall soccer scene is making soccer players better, but also putting these players out into the St. Louis population to change things for the betterment, to change things, to do things better. And that's what they did. That's one of the things you pick up in a team concept like the sport of soccer. And you're met by people like this, like Pete and Harry and Val, who you do not want to disappoint. Yes, in many ways they are father figures, but they came before you, and you do not want to disappoint them. And they overall built this atmosphere that we right now are reveling in. I've said it so many times, Kev, on your podcast before, on many other shows. When we go to Energizer Park, we're going down to Watch City, and we are tremendously grateful that we're able to go to this magnificent venue, watch this current MLS team, but we're doing so, and we're watching on the shoulders of giants, of icons who came before us, who made this, who built this in all of us, a love for this sport. There are many who came before us, and we cannot and should not and will not ever forget them.
That's right. That's right, man. and all of them. Man.
Oh, a drum roll. Thank you, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, baby. I mean, you know.
Is that Gene Krupa in the background?
Yeah, well, no, it's his brother Harry. Harry Krupa, yeah.
He didn't go on to such heights, did he?
No, he didn't. And that's why we were able to afford him at Boom Boom Studios in downtown Holly Hills.
I gotcha.
So how about this? We talk of all of them, and my coach, my friend Terry Michler, he grew up in all that mix. He's seen them. He went out to Rockhurst, and came. He got, I guess, the best thing that came out of Kansas City is Bishop Hogan and his wife, Mary Lou, that he married out from there. And so you have that going. And Tony Toko's still there.
Astounding. Absolutely astounding. And I have a brief story about Tony, who I got to know real well at St. Louis University. And then, of course, his very close friend, Carl Gentili. By the way, that's a duo, may I add. But nonetheless, our twin daughters, Mary and Colleen, went to Rockhurst.
Wow.
And on one particular day, Tony, who is chairman of and head of the accounting department, was a guest teacher in Colleen and Mary's freshman accounting class. And they knew that I knew Tony. So they call and say, "Dad, whoa, your friend Mr. Toko is scary."
Woo,
I think that's maybe what a lot of his players said at Rockhurst as well.
Oh, man.
But still there. What's our theme, Kevin, of this conversation? Still giving back.
Yeah.
Still giving back. Farming players with character who go on to contribute to the sport in whatever fashion.
Yeah. So you have it, and without a doubt, you started to parish, and see if you're okay there, and then you go, for the community, you get a couple. How good are you there? And then the citywide, and then the United States, and national. But Terry Michler is that he went all through those levels to be a national recognized.
Yes, sir.
A soccer master of sorts.
Yes, and how many players, Kev? We lost track.
Yeah.
How many players went on to play intercollegiate soccer? Went on to play professional soccer, no matter what degree, but in some capacity, a lot of his players went on to play professional soccer, but mostly because of their CBC background and the tutelage by Terry. A goodly number got college soccer scholarships to further their careers and then went on after intercollegiate soccer. But the base of that was their high school soccer, and in particular, Terry Michler, who continues to influence all these players by what he did at CBC.
Yeah. And, and you talk of the giving back. It's just multitudes of players who give back. And then once, say, like I'm in there, if something's going on, I'm calling the Rolex. Hey, Jeff, come over here and, you know guys that know guys, and you just keep on giving back. You never allow somebody to sit in the easy chair. Hey, come on, get out of here.
Yeah, everybody's connected.
Yeah.
Everybody's connected, Kevin, one way or another, via this sport. And growing up with this sport in St. Louis, I don't care what anybody else says, one of, if not the original soccer city in our country that gave the sport so much exposure. And the way it is now, soccer is a sport for a changing America. When we started, when I was announcing in 1996, I'm not Lamar Hunt by any means, but when I was fortunate to be involved in 96 and to see it grow now, in which the capacity it occupies now on the overall sporting level, I think it is a legitimate candidate to be a part of this overall sports panorama here in our country. And you're seeing stories about players on a regular basis, either players from our country. The latest Time magazine, as a matter of fact, talk about getting to the masses. The latest Time magazine no less, doesn't normally cater or talk about soccer players of any description. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-page article about Erling Haaland from Manchester City and what he's done, not just for City, but for Norway, and in hopes of getting them to the World Cup. So it just goes to show you that it has made its mark and continues to make its mark in the United States simply because soccer, as I mentioned, is a sport for a changing America. It's being accepted now by the masses. And I think one of the main things that has catered to that, Kev, or has made it that way, is the establishment of the soccer-specific stadium. That has so much to do with the growth of the sport. Case in point, when people like myself and Phil Shane and Ty Keogh, the original crew on ESPN to announce MLS in 96, when we started, we would do games at the Rose Bowl, Giants Stadium, Mile High Stadium, Foxborough, all of which are magnificent venues, but way, way too big for the sport of soccer in our country. I keep talking about the fact that it's gained a new popularity. We weren't ready for 1996 for the Los Angeles Galaxy to play the Tampa Bay Mutiny at the Rose Bowl in front of 20,000 people. 20,000 people is a great crowd for soccer in the United States. Not at the Rose Bowl, not at Giant Stadium, not at Mile High Stadium. But now, because of the soccer-specific stadium, and in particular, the venue like St. Louis, which is one centralized location for everything, the stadium, the training ground, the locker rooms, the offices, the merchandise store, in one centralized location in a major metropolitan area of a major United States city. And if it is a city that's going to occupy that title, why should it not be St. Louis? It only stands to reason that the first city to do this, to have everything in one location, would be the city of St. Louis.
There you go. I'm telling you, man, you bring the shovel. You're shovel deep. You're deep in your conversation.
Well, we're just as Joe DiMaggio once said, wait a minute, first of all, I'm not equating myself with Joe DiMaggio.
No.
Let's get that right on.
Okay.
Joe DiMaggio once said, hey, I'm just a guy trying to get by.
All right then, baby. But I had to go back. I can't miss it. Tocco and Gentile is a pair who will beat a full house.
Without any without question. I'm very fortunate to call Carl Gentile a good friend. I talk to him on a regular basis.
Nice.
People like Carl, and a lot of people lose track of the concept that Carl not only played at St. Louis U, but then for White Star. And what you talk about, I mention all the time the building bricks for the foundation of St. Louis Soccer.
Yeah.
White Star's a team that's dramatically overlooked. Carl went on to coach. He did so much for St. Louis Soccer just by being a player and then contributing to it afterwards, like we're all trying to do, Kev.
Yeah, and he's got a boy. Is Vince Gentile?
Yes,
is heavy in the mix.
Very, very active. Fortunately, back in St. Louis now with St. Louis Scott Gallagher, working on the women's side. So adding players on a regular basis and contributing, again, the Gentile name goes a long way in St. Louis soccer.
Yeah.
And we're glad to see that it still does.
Yeah. So here we go, man. I still got to ask you one more time, man.
Sure.
About TM, about the significance of if you have something about the significance of Terry Michler being there for 50 plus years and accomplishing what he accomplished.
Yeah. How about that, Kev? W. Clement Stone said, "You're a product of your environment." And Terry Michler fits that description 100% of the time. And it continues to do good for St. Louis soccer, which in turn, because so many people look to St. Louis for guidance, how they've done it over the years, he continues to influence the game and his players, not from just in the St. Louis area, but it's gained national attention for us. Now, someday I want to have a conversation with Terry because he's in love with Dutch soccer, as I am too.
Oh,
in particular, the '74 team with Johan Cruyff and Johan Neeskens and Wim Weisbergen and Robbie Rinsenbrink and players like that. But some of the later exhibitions by the Dutch in World Cup finals were tremendously condemned by players like the ones I just mentioned at the top of the list, Johan Cruyff. However, Holland still with their pedigree, what they've done for a small country like that to get into World Cup finals on a consistent basis and influence, again, players literally from around the world, that's their place in the international game. And they've done so successfully day to day. But Terry, what he has done with reference to high school soccer is first and foremostly, yes, I understand this, Kev. He's influenced players. He's made soccer players better. But he's also influenced them as young men. We saw that at the celebration out at CBC a couple months ago with reference to how many people came back to show their respect for their coach. And that's why he continues to influence people on a regular basis, on and off, perhaps more importantly, off the soccer field.
Yeah. That was really a nice event, wasn't it, baby? I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Those booklets was a player from he works and still has a little one-man shop with the printing, and he printed up that program.
Well, that program you had right in front of you was all the information you needed.
Oh, I mean to tell you, yeah.
Told you the numbers.
Yeah. And that, there's no more song and dance. It's pure numbers. And then every number's got a story to it, which we're doing on Wales Certified Podcast, the 3-part. We did the first, the 70s and the early 80s, and now we're going doing the right. But I'm thankful that you mentioned that, and that how about all that, because
it was, as you mentioned, Kev, it was not only a great evening, but to see the players who came back. In particular, one of my college classmates at St. Louis U, John Pisani, still the leading scorer at CBC.
Yeah.
Players like John and Tim McAvoy in the early years, Gentili, Cerisi, who were at CBC with Bob Horgan before Terry.
Yeah.
But then and then players like Billy Baumhoff continuing to contribute to the program on a regular basis. Again, what's been a theme of our conversation here, Kev?
Yeah.
Give something back. Give something back, and do so on a regular basis, and do something that you're comfortable doing.
Yeah.
So you learn the sport of soccer in some capacity, some ways small, some ways large, through what you gained at CBC. So it only stands the reason that you give something back to that institution.
And there you go about him as a player. 15 consecutive shutouts in one season, and one more, 16 for the previous year, that went 16 consecutive shutouts. Wow, baby.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen not just here in St. Louis high school soccer. That doesn't happen in La Liga. That doesn't happen in the English Premier League. That doesn't happen anywhere.
Yeah, man.
Those are astounding numbers.
Yeah. And the whole story is everybody's got CBC. They had CBC targeted on their back for the league because we played in districts, and my brother, that he took me for the introduction to CBC. He said he went to DeAndre's, and he said that we were good, but we just could never beat CBC in that final game.
Yeah, and for a team like DeAndre's to say that, who was had their own high school soccer pedigree, led first and foremostly by Bill O'Leary and Chuck Zeller and countless others who went to St. Louis U and Michigan State. If DeAndre's had a difficult time playing against CBC, well, then everybody did.
Yeah. There you go. And oh man, it's so poor McBride.
Well, the upper field at Sherman Park where there were no nets, so consequently, if a ball went wide, high, wherever, behind the goal closest to Coach Brilliant, well, Coach Brilliant was on a tremendous slant leading up the hill from Kings Highway. But if the ball went out onto Coach Brilliant, it went straight down that hill out onto Kings Highway. And I had that happen on a regular basis.
Oh, man. So we have all that mix. It's in the field. And everybody, there's a lot of negativity in the last couple years about St. Louis soccer. But I have to tell you, every time, all the time, you carry the water, bro. You carry like look underneath the bed to find your shoes. A reason to be so optimistic.
Well, I've always thought that the St. Louis soccer player is more than capable of playing with anybody in the United States, and some of whom, I mentioned them just a moment ago, are capable of playing for the United States national team and have gone on to do so. And now, on the national youth teams, men and women included, there are countless St. Louis players who are carrying that flag of St. Louis on various national youth teams. And there's a lot of players upcoming, some of who I can't mention right now because they're being recruited by various colleges around the country, who are going to be national team players, irrespective of where they go to high school or college. They're so good. Some of these players are so good that they will not escape U.S. soccer's notice. So St. Louis will continue to be a focal point for bringing talent to the national teams.
I'm telling you, baby, you put on the jacket and you zipped it up real nicely. There's just no need to be said anymore. That's well done, laddie. I mean,
thanks, Kev. Yeah. Fun to be with you, as always.
Yeah, but it always happens here at Whale Certified is to say, hey, Bill, whatever you want to say to who you ever want to say it to for as long as you want to say it for.
Well, that's nice of you, Kev. Thank you very much. And we'll do it again sometime as we get closer to the World Cup upcoming, when we know more of the countries, too. We can talk about that.
Okay. We'll pool play. We'll talk at the pools.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good starting point. Yep,
yeah,
exactly. All right, Kev.
All right, then. The best to you and yours, Bill.
Likewise, Kevin.
Bye-bye. Oh, boy.